Welcome to Lesson 2. Lesson 2 is about the older adult. Since the majority of our populations are older adults, we're going to spend an entire module focused on this population. We're going to look at aging from a couple of perspectives: a social perspective, a psychosocial perspective, and also a physical perspective. As with Lesson 1, I've provided you with a suggested weekly schedule of tasks to complete for each week. You are not limited to this schedule. This is simply a suggestion and a guide to keep you on task with the course. If you have any difficulty with any of the tasks, by all means, please reach out to me. In this lesson, we look at the social and the psychosocial aspects of aging. We look at ageism, which is the last form of discrimination that basically is accepted in our society, treating people differently just because of their age. We also look at cohorts, the significance of a group of people being born at the same time and going through life events in the same way. You know, baby boomers are a good example of that. The generation before the baby boomers is also another example of that, where people grew up at the same period of time and it molded how they think and how they feel about things. We're also going to look at some of the theories of aging, not only the psychosocial theories of aging, but some of the physical aspects of aging. Then we're going to also look at the notion of wellness and look at the difference between wellness and a person's attitude towards quality of life versus having physical losses that impact on a person's ability to have a good quality of life. As we explore the physical aspects of aging, we're going to be looking at some of the typical age-related changes that occur in primary aging. Primary aging are just the normal wear and tear types of things that our body goes through as we get older. Then we're going to be looking at some of the very typical age-related diagnoses that we encounter in our work with older adults. And you're going to select 4 individuals and interview them to discuss the key symptoms of their diagnosis and how that diagnosis impacts on their ability to enjoy a good quality of life. And finally, you're going to discuss how you have adapted programming so they can still enjoy things in spite of their diagnoses. In this lesson, we also look at end-of-life issues. We review the basic concepts of hospice. We look at Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and her stages of grief. And part of that is evaluating your community's practice when a person in your community does die. How does your facility handle it? How do you support your residents, support your staff? You know, what's done in your community and whether you think that's effective or what suggestions you might have to improve the process. There are also definitions with this lesson, which will keep you on track in studying for the national exam. As with Lesson 1, you conclude your lesson by meeting with your practicum supervisor. Briefly share some of the things you have learned in this lesson. Again, what are you able to apply, and any barriers to communication. A good discussion to have with your supervisor would be the subject of death and dying, especially if you have some positive suggestions as to how your community can better address this issue within your community. And finally, you submit those signed practicum meeting forms and you move on to the next lesson.